Hi guys, my name is Meljanzer Hamok and my topic is archiving. So, archiving is the process of making an archive file. Reconstructing the original files from the archive is termed unarchiving, unpacking, or extracting. So, before we start or show you the archiving process, let us first define what is an archive. An archive is a single file that contains many separate files. These individual files can be extracted from the main archive. Archive file is a computer file that is composed of one or more files along with the metadata. Archive files are used to collect multiple data files together into a single file for easier portability and storage, or simply to compress files to use less storage space. Archive files often store directory structures, error detection and correction information, arbitrary comments, and sometimes use built-in encryption. Next is File Archiver Program. File Archiver Program is a computer program that combines a number of files together into one archive. Files are a series of archive files. For easier transportation or storage, file archivers may employ lossless data compression in their archive formats to reduce the size of the archive. Basic archivers just take a list of files and concatenate their contents sequentially into archives. The archive files needs to store metadata, at least the names and lengths of the original files if proper reconstruction is possible. So basically, File Archiver is a program or software that creates an archive file. Without Archiver program, you can't archive your files or any folders. So here are some archival program. So Windows we have WinZip, WinRAR, 7-Zip. Linux we have gzip, Compress, TR or tar. Apple we have Expander. Many of these programs can handle more than one format. Archive format is the file format of an archive file. Some formats are well defined by the authors and have become conventions, support multiple vendors and communities. Types of format. Archiving only formats store metadata and concatenate files. Compression only format. Formats only compress files. Multi-function format can store metadata, concatenate, compress, encrypt, create error detection and recovery information, and package the archive into self-extracting and self-expanding files. Software packaging formats are used to create software packages that may be self-installing files. These image formats are used to create these images of mass storage volumes. Here are some file extensions. So Windows we have .zip, .rar, .7z, and Linux we have .gz, .z, and tar, and Apple we have HQX. File name extension used to distinguish different types of archives. The operating system as listed is the native OS for these formats. This format may be able to be used on other OS as well. Archiving process now. So I'm going to archive some files. First, let's select a file to add in the archive. Here we have some Word and PDF files. So let's select all, right click, add to archive. Now let's create an archive name. So we can select archive format, archive option. So let's select delete all files after archiving, press OK. So now our files are gone. Now it's inside the archive. So here's our files. That's all for archiving.
Data compressions. A brief history of data compression. As the Internet emerged in the 1970s, the relationship between file size and transfer speed became much more apparent. Mathematicians around the world addressed the problem for years, but it wasn't until the Zipf-Wilk universal lossless compression algorithms came on the scene in the mid-1980s that real benefits were realized. LZW compression was the first widely used data compression method implemented on computers, and it's still used today in various situations. A large English text file can typically be compressed to about half its original size with LZW. Data compression. Data compression is somewhat a process which the size of a file is reduced by re-encoding, restructuring, or modifying the file data to use fewer bits of storage than the original file. A fundamental component of data compression is that the original file can be transferred, stored, recreated, and then used later with a process called decompression. So basically, data compression is, for example, if you have a large file or a folder that contains many documents like spreadsheets, documents, PDFs. If the file is ranging from the size to um, 1 GB to 2 GB at least, if you compress those, if you compress those files, the file might be gonna be small, like reduce. It will reduce the size up to 30 to 50% depending on the uh, compression ratio. So yeah, there are two types of compression: lossless compression and lossy compression. Lossless compression. It removes bits by locating and removing statistical redundancies. Because of this technique, no information or data is actually removed. Lossless compression will often have smaller compression ratio with the benefit of not losing any data and in the file. This is often very important when needing to maintain absolute quality as with database information or professional media files. So this lossless compression is ideally ginagamit niya siya sa mga spreadsheets like Word, Excel, mga inana kay i-keep man niya ang original file, i-keep niya ang original bits pero iyang ipagamay. Then the second one is lossy compression. It lowers the size by deleting unnecessary information and reducing the complexity of existing information. This type of compression is most commonly used on image, video, and audio files, where a perfect representation of the source media is not required. Lossy compression can achieve much higher compression ratios at the cost of possible degradation of the file quality. GPEG offers lossy compression options, and MP3 is based on lossy compressions. So basically, the lower the compression ratio, uh, the more the original file or original bits were preserved, and the more higher compression ratio, the more degradation of the file quality, or the more dagan mawala sa nga files kay kuan man ginapagamay siya as much as possible. So ang perfect example niya ni is kanang mga image nga JPEG o mga MP3. Uh, for example, an MP3 audio file doesn't contain all the audio information from the original recording. Instead, MP3 lossy compression removes sounds that human can't hear, since the average human ear would not notice this difference. The result is a smaller file with minimal user impact. So, ang lossy compression is ginagamit niya siya sa mga image, video, and audio files. Then, dili niya siya kuan kanang ang the downside niya ani is the more heavily a file is compressed with lossy compression, the more noticeable the reduction in quality becomes. The more daw nga heavy ang pagka-compress niya with lossy compressions, the more daw manotice nimo ang reduction sa iyang quality. Lossy compression does not work well with files where all the data is crucial. For example, compressing a spreadsheet would yield unusable results. Dili na siya ideal nga gamiton for spreadsheets kay naay mawala nga mga data. For example, numbers, letters, para rin siya sa mga image, video, and audio files. For the spreadsheets or mga inana nga kuan files may crucial sa inyong company, dapat dadugid sa lossless. Data compression uses it audio implemented as audio codecs. Compression of audio files is necessary to guarantee bandwidth and storage limits aren't exceeded. Audio compression can be either lossy or lossless, MP3 being the most ubiquitous lossy codec. FLAC is a major lossless encoding format. As for the video, it combines image compression with audio compression. There are usually separate codecs for each aspects of video which are then wrapped together as a single compression codec. Because of the high data rate required for uncompressed video, most video files are compressed using lossy compression. The most prevalent form of lossy video compression is MPEG. So, kaning paggamit sa compression is dili ra ni siya for audio and video. Pwede gyapon ni siya sa mga game files, like any other files nga gusto nimo siya ipa-compress para ang pag-send nimo ato nga file is usara. Then mas less ang iyang size kay naka-compress na. Dili ra ni siya malimit sa audio and video. Pwede gyapon ni siya sa laing files. Pero lagi popular programs. Muna yung popular programs nga ginagamit pag compress. WinRAR is the most popular one. Ang LDS is the primary compression method for WinRAR. It is lossless data compression algorithm derived from LZ77. So, I think WinRAR is nagamit siya og lossless data compression is ang company niya ani is gina-design yun niya nga walay mawala sa files or the information pag compress. Mo gid ang purpose niya ani. Then the other one is 7-zip. 7-zip is free, I think. Then WinRAR is paid. Pero na 40-day trial. Pero gina-crack naman siya. So 7-zip is LZMA is default method for 7Z compression. It offers a high compression ratio with good decompression speed and low memory requirements. Wala kay po gamit na ni 7-zip. Why use compression? The main advantage of compression are reductions in storage hardware, data transmission time, and communication bandwidth. This can result in significant cost savings. Compressed files require significantly less storage capacity than uncompressed files, meaning a significant decrease in expenses for storage. A compressed file also requires less time for transfer while consuming less network bandwidth. This can also help with cost and also increase productivity. Na isa ka example aning compression nga game is Valorant. Mag-download kag Valorant nga game is mo range siya og 8 GB. Initial download na siya. Then pagkauman mo siya og download, ang actual size niya sa game is mudagan siya og 16 to 14 to 18 ata. So mo na siya ang proof nga ang Riot Games is ginagamit nila ang compression for data transmission o kanang consuming less network bandwidth, which is very useful if mag-transfer og mga files. The main disadvantage of data compression is the increased use of computing resource to apply. Nakabantay mo anang mag-unzip uncompressed MOV file nga medyo unresponsive ang inyong uban apps kay ang inyong disk usage is on 100% or ang inyong CPU usage is naka 50% above ang WinRAR mo na siya. Because of this, compression vendors prioritize speed and resource efficiency optimizations in order to maximize the impact of intensive comprehension tasks. That's all. Thank you.
Hello everybody, I'm Janoy Telpay and I'm here to report about the difference between archiving and compression. What is archiving and compression? Archiving. It is the process of collecting and storing a group of files and directories into one file. An archive file is not compressed. The reason why an archive file is not compressed is because it uses the same amount of disk space as all the individual files and directories combined. Compression. It is the act of reducing the size of a file into one file. A compressed file can be an archive file. The reason why a compressed file can be an archive file is because it's stored in one file and stored in a way that uses less disk space than all the individual files and directories combined. What are their uses? Archiving. It uses to collect multiple data files together into a single file for easier portability and storage. While compression, it reduces the data file size to save disk space for easier and faster transmission over a network or the internet. It also enables the creation of a version of one or more files with the same data at a size substantially smaller than the original file. Like for example, in compression, a 1.2 gigabyte compressed file can be split into 4 300 megabyte compressed files for time accessibility or fast transfer from the internet to computer. The effects of their file size. Archiving. It uses the same amount of disk space as all the individual files and directories combined. For example, if you have 5 files, each of a size contains 10 kilobytes. Archiving them will give you 5 by 10 is equal or 5 times 10 is equals to 50 kilobytes. While compression, it often takes up 50% to 90% less disk space than the original files. Types of archives and file compressors. Here are some softwares that can archive/compress files. Softwares that can be archive/compress files in DOS/Windows are WinZip, WinRAR, and Arch. In Unix/Linux, softwares that can be compressed files are gzip and compress, while tar is the only application that can be archive files. Lastly, Stofit Expander is the only software that can be archive/compress files in Apple. Thank you for listening.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. My topic is about security. So, computer security is mainly concerned with three main areas, and it is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So, confidentiality is ensuring that information is available only to the intended audience. So, you want your you can modify your security to whom kanang kinsay makakita, makabasa ng inana. So integrity is protecting information from being modified by unauthorized parties. So kanang gusto nimo nga kinsa ang maka-modify sa imong information. So availability is protecting information from being modified by unauthorized parties also. So next is the components of a computer system that needs to be protected are hardware, firmware, software. So hardware. physical part of the computer, like the system memory and disk drive. You need to secure this because there in the memory you you have inputted data, for example your files, your information. So next is firmware, permanent software that is etched into a hardware device, non-volatile memory, and is mostly invisible to the user. So next is software, the programming that offers service like operating system, word processor, internet browser to the user. Also, there is data that you input the software, so you also need to secure it. So next is types of security in a computer. First is information security, securing information from unauthorized access. So this is just you put passwords to secure your information. One example of this is when you are using Facebook, you place passwords to protect your information on Facebook. Next is application security. Application security, securing an application to prevent cyber threats. So when you are using an application, by protecting it, you must install security software such as antivirus to help, because these security softwares help you secure your application. Next is computer security, keeping your computer updated and patched. So this is just updating your computer to its latest drivers, because if you update your computer to its latest drivers, you will have its latest security features. Next is network security. So securing your information when connected to a network. So securing your network. To secure your network, you must put passwords on your router and enabling WPA2 encryptions in your router. Next is cybersecurity. This is defined as protecting computer systems which communicate over the computer networks. So when you're connected to the internet, you must always have a secure internet connection. So this is where VPNs would help. Next, computer security practices. So these are secure your computer physically by installing reliable antiviruses or software, because if you install unreliable antiviruses or software, it can maybe breach your security. This is activating your firewall, because firewall is very important. It acts as a security guard between the internet and your local area network or LAN. Next, stay up to date on the latest software and news surrounding your device, and perform software updates as soon as they become available. So this is very important. You must always look for the latest security softwares or the latest updates, because you will have the latest security yes. Next is avoid clicking on email attachments unless you know the source, because this is just uh, common sense. Next is change passwords regularly using a unique combination of numbers, letters, and case types. So passwords is very important. And next, use the internet with caution and ignore pop-ups. Drive-by downloads while surfing. So just surf with caution. Next is taking the time to research the basic aspects of computer security and educate yourself on involving cyber threats. So this is very important. You must educate yourself about what other cyber threats, and also learn and research about basic or advanced computer security aspects. Next is perform daily system scans and create a periodic system backup schedule to ensure your data is retrievable should something happen to your computer. So you clean your computer every day by scanning it with the use of security softwares like antivirus, and always back up your files because you would not know, maybe you will have security breaches or like that. So that is all. Thank you.
Self-protection. What is protection? Protection refers to a mechanism which controls the access of programs, processes, or users to the resources defined by a computer system. We can take protection as a helper to multi-programming operating system so that many users might safely share a common logical name space such as directory or files. And why do we need protection? It is to prevent the access of unauthorized users, to ensure that each active programs or processes in the system uses resources only as the stated policy, to improve reliability by detecting latent errors. So these are the prevalent threats that happen in a system. A threat is a program that is malicious in nature and causes the device to experience adverse effects. First is we have virus. Virus is small fragments of code inserted in a device are common viruses. They are very risky and can corrupt data, delete information, crash systems. By replicating themselves as needed, they can also spread further. Second is Trojan horse. A Trojan horse is able to secretly access a system's logged-in data. This can then be used by a malicious user to access the system as a harmless being and wreak havoc. Third is a trapdoor. A trapdoor is a violation of security that may be present in a device without the user's knowledge. It can be abused by malicious people to damage the data or files in a system. Fourth is worm. Through using its resources to extreme levels, a worm will kill a machine. It can create several copies that assert all resources and do not enable them to be accessed by any other processes. In this way, a worm can shut down a whole network. And we have the denial of service. This kind of attack do not cause a device to be accessed by legitimate users. It overwhelms the device with requests so that it is overloaded and other users cannot operate properly. So that's it for their protection.
Differences between security and protection. Basic difference. Security is giving system access to legitimate users, while protection is the one that controls the access to the system resources. Policy. Security describes which users can be allowed to use the system, while protection describes the files that can be accessed by the user. Threats involved. Security involves external threats, while protection involves internal threats. Thank you.